You know, it's a great way to throw away all the DNS that you had so far this year. That's go out and win. And Ryan Blaney did that last night. Hey there, race fans. It's Race Day Top 5 with me, Frank 5. Nashville Superspeedway, just a few miles outside the city of music with the bright lights, the bars, the music blasting. It's always a good time when you go to Nashville. But this weekend, it was the cars that were making the loud noise instead of the music at Nashville Superspeedway. The 1.3 mile concrete track that kind of looks like a mile and a half, but it's a little differently because of the concrete surface and the way you slip and slide all over the track. Last night we had a lot of guys going back and forth for most of the race. By the end of the night, one driver came out victorious after a really rough start to the season. He finally broke through with a win. Let's get into all that happened last night at Nashville. Number 1, Blaney closes the deal. Finally, Ryan Blaney is a winner in the 2025 Cup Series season as he won last night's Cracker Barrel 400 at Nashville Superspeedway, beating Carson Hocevar, Denny Hamlin, Joey Logano, and William Byron for the victory. This was a big win and a massive relief off the shoulders of Ryan Blaney and this number 12 team, because most of this season they have had speed in their cars. There's no question about it. But some of the races that they possibly could have won or finished inside the top 5, top 10, they end up falling out of the race due to unfortunate circumstances, whether it being wrecks or 2 blown motors. And it's been a really tough go for Ryan Blaney so far this year. I feel like that he could have won at least 2 to 3 races by now. That's how good this 12 team has been, but not being able to close the deal. But last night, Blaney got the job done. He qualified inside the top 15, started to work his way forward, and then in stage number 1, when everybody decided to pit around lap 40 to 50 of the race, Jonathan Hassler told Ryan Blaney, let's extend it just a little bit and keep it out there for as long as possible, thinking we'll come in a little bit later and get those fresher tires and be able to pass some of those guys that we were running behind at the time. So they extended it until lap number 70. When Blaney came down pit road, he put on those tires, and he came flying through the field from where he was after the cycle, went from 15th all the way up to 7th at the end of stage number 1. And then to start off stage number 2, when a lot of the teams decided to go with some of their 4 tires, Ryan Blaney's team elected to go with 2 tires to gain them more track position and get them inside the top 5. And they basically stayed there the rest of the night. Despite all the cautions in the early part of the second stage, he was still hanging tough with Denny Hamlin and William Byron for a lot of that second stage, battling it out for the lead. Those 3 had quite the battle for the lead at the end of stage number 2 to see who's going to come out on top with a bonus point. In the 12 car, despite numerous attempts to get by Denny Hamlin, he fell back. The 24 got by, and then the 24 slipped up the track, and Blaney was able to get by both of them, and he was able to take stage number 2. And then we get into the final stage. It was still Blaney versus Denny Hamlin, and it felt like that there were times that the 11 could have closed on him, and Blaney was one of the first cars to pit during the final round of green flag pit stops in the final stage. Going forward, it's longer run, the guys that maybe pit a little bit later that were close to him in the leaderboard would have a better chance of running him down. But that was not the case. Despite all the lap traffic that Ryan Blaney was trying to pick his way through at the very end of the race, he did not look back at all, and he was able to hold his ground and bring the car home in one piece in first place, victorious. And you could see the emotion and the relief in Ryan Blaney post-race when he climbed out of that car, jumping on top of the hood and celebrating with the fans. He was just so excited because, and Ryan Blaney, you know how pissy he gets on the radio when things are not going his way, but when he wins, he's a very happy and emotional guy. And of course, he always has that tradition where he takes the checkered flag and picks out a young fan and hands the checkered flag to them. He's just such a good guy in general. I mean, how can you hate Ryan Blaney? But this is a big win and relief off this team's shoulders because they hadn't won up until this point, despite all the DNFs they've had and close calls that they've had of winning races. Last night was just a big weight off the team's shoulders. Now they're in the playoffs. You can forget about those 5 DNFs, and now they're going to try to go and get more wins. And when this 12 team wins a race, they get hot, and we've seen the last 2 years in the playoffs, especially when it comes to Martinsville, because in Martinsville in the fall, he's unstoppable. He's able to win these races and get himself to the championship four. And of course, in 2023, he became the Cup Series champion. So now that he's in the playoffs, I could expect more wins possibly for Blaney going forward. So even if he maybe has a DNF next week, they're going to look back and say, you know what, we got the win last week. We just shrug it off and we go on to the next one. But a big congratulations to Ryan Blaney, Jonathan Hassler, and the number 12 team. Finally, they got a win in 2025. Number 2, Hamlin falls short. Denny Hamlin had such a fast car last night. Starting on the outside pole next to teammate Chase Briscoe, he was hounding his teammate in the early part of the first stage, and then after the pit stop sequence, he got into a battle with his teammate for the stage win where he eventually took it from him and had to hold off his driver, Tyler Reddick, who was charging up from behind to take stage number 1. Then in stage 2, he had all the restarts he had to go through with everybody behind him having some issues, and he had the battles with Blaney and Byron. It looked like that Hamlin could have held on and won the second stage, but I think as the track started to cool down, despite the speed in that car, it felt like the rest of the competition was starting to gain on the 11 car of Denny Hamlin, and eventually he fell out of the lead and fell back to, I think, second or third place at the end of stage number 2. And in the final stage, he was battling hard with the 12 car of Ryan Blaney, and he was the one that was able to pit later in the final round of green flag pit stops, hoping that he could use those fresher tires to run down the 12 at the very end. But that was not the case because he was running into the same lap traffic that the 12 car was, and there's no way to maneuver past those guys, especially as tough as it was, and the cooler temps, extra grip, a little bit tough to pass. But at the end of the night, it was still a great third place run for Denny Hamlin, who he and his fiance are expecting their third child any moment now. But this race was not without some challenges for Denny Hamlin, despite trying to chase down the leader at the very end of the race. He had some problems with, I think, his braking in the race, because I don't think the pedal was not really going to the floor like the fluid was not going well. And in the final stage, his air hose in the back that connects to the back of his helmet came loose. So imagine running the rest of the race, albeit it was in the nighttime, it's June now, and it's very, very warm this time of year. Having to run the rest of that race without the air hose connected to the back of your helmet and not having any air, cooling-wise, flowing into the back of your helmet and cooling you down. At the end of the race, though, he got out and didn't look dehydrated at all, but if it was a hot, humid night, it could have been a lot worse for Denny Hamlin. So some of those things, very frustrating, but at the end of the night, you take what you could get, and you move on to the next one, and Denny Hamlin will have to do that. A third-place finish is still a good result, but some things possibly, affected his chances to try to win the race. Number 3, strong run for Hocevar despite controversy. Carson Hocevar matched his career best finish of a second-place result by finishing in second place last night after 1 week ago where he was in the mix late for the Coca-Cola 600 till his motor blew up to start the final stage, knocking him out of the race. There was optimism and hope that Hocevar could rebound the following race at Nashville and put beside the disappointment from last week's 600. And last night, they had to claw his way from 26 all the way up through the field. Now, this car was fast, but there was one moment where he was in the dark for the most part. And that was in stage number 2, where he was trying to catch up to Ricky Stenhouse Jr. going into turn number 3. Stenhouse Jr. was kind of coming down the track, but Hocevar, carrying a little extra speed into the corner, found a gap that he felt like he could fit in, but just as Stenhouse was coming down, they made contact and the 47 goes around and sent Stenhouse into the outside wall and effectively knocked him out of the race with a 39th place result. Hocevar was able to carry on, and as the night got colder, as far as the sun going down and the moon and the stars coming out and the lights coming out, Hocevar's car continued to keep working through the field. He got into the top 5 in this final stage and got himself in second place after that round of green flag pit stops, and there was the possibility he could run down Ryan Blaney and maybe he could challenge him for the win. But like Denny Hamlin and Blaney, there was a lot of lap traffic you had to negotiate through, and it was tough going for the 77 team. Still a great performance by Hocevar to get second place and get some stage points from stage number 2 to get him closer to the cutoff grid. As I say this, as good of a night as it was for Hocevar with this result, the incident with Stenhouse Jr. is going to leave a little bit of a black eye in his night, because Stenhouse Jr. was not pleased about it, and of course Hocevar, as talented as this 22-year-old is, again, he has a lot of talent. There'd be no reason he'd have a cup ride right now if he didn't have the talent. He's got the potential to win a cup race. But once again, some of his aggression on the racetrack when it comes to getting into guys have left some people a little bit frustrated with him. Sometimes there is a fine line between racing hard versus being too aggressive. And it's tough to find that line, I feel like, with Carson Hocevar. It's kind of similar to Ross Chastain, because he's had that in the past. Joey Logano's had that in the past, although I feel like he's mellowed out a little bit. Maybe not to some people, but I feel like he has mellowed out to them with aggressiveness that he used to have, especially in his early days at Team Penske. Ross Chastain, I feel like, is trying to still find the fine line between racing hard and aggressive. Carson Hocevar is still trying to learn that as well. Again, it was a great result, but of course you leave a driver who was above the cutoff line entering the night, and then after the race is below the cutoff line, and who knows if he can climb back in there. It's not really good on you, and there is a chance that Ricky Stenhouse could retaliate on the track going forward. But I would think it would probably be at a short track and a road course, because anything faster than a 1 mile track, a mile and a half, a 2 mile, or a super speedway is not acceptable at all. So you got to keep that in mind. But as great as Carson Hocevar's run was last night, and the result was, the incident with Stenhouse has got a lot of people talking about, his aggression and whether or not he can control it. But despite that, it was a great result for Hocevar. Number 4, rebounds by multiple drivers. A lot of guys had some adversity last night based on where they started or what they dealt with in the race, and were able to claw their way back and finishing inside the top 10. Why don't we kick it off with Bubba Wallace with a 6th place result, a big time result, because the last 3 weeks for Bubba Wallace have been hell. All finishes outside the top 30. Wrecked at Texas to start the final stage, 33rd place. Wrecked late at Kansas after running top 10 earlier, 33rd place. He was no-show at the Coke 600 to a point where I couldn't even find him on a milk carton if I could. 35th place finish in the wreck on the backstretch where Hocevar blew up and he ran into the side of Ty Gibbs, knocking Bubba out of the race. And he lost a lot of the points that he'd had earlier in the year and the cushion that he had. But last night he was able to gain back some. Now again, he had an incident early in the first stage where during the green flag pit stop cycle that we had, he got caught for speeding on pit entry and thus had to come back and serve a pass through. He fell a lap down, but thankfully due to the multitude of cautions that we had in the second stage, Bubba got back on the lead lap and kept clawing his way back up through the field. He had a good race car. Don't know if it was a winning car, but it was certainly a top 10 car. And at the end of the night, he comes out there with a 6th place result, and he was a very happy guy in his post-race interview after the last 3 weeks have been rough on him. This was a good shot in the arm for him, especially recently because he and his wife had a baby. And again, congratulations to the Wallace family. He was very happy with the result, and let's see if they can continue this great result with more good results going forward. Then you've got Kyle Larson. Who would have thought, Kyle Larson rebounding from issues? Well, he did not qualify well. He qualified in 28th spot. He did gain 6 spots after the first 2 laps, but then on the 3rd lap going into 1 and 2, he got bumped in the outside line by Zane Smith, and that sent him all the way back to 36, and he still had to fight and claw. The car at the beginning of the race was not there for Kyle Larson, and looking at it, I didn't think it was going to be a winning car at all. And that was obviously the case. But Larson had to fend off the leaders behind him at the end of the first stage to stay on the lead lap. That's how far off they were. But they were able to keep their lap intact. They were able to continue to work on the car as the sun went down, and they got inside the top 10 by the final stage. At the end of the night, he comes away with an 8th place result. Given the circumstances of where he qualified and how far off they were at the beginning, I think you take that and run with it. So a good rebound for Larson in the 5 team. And then you've got Tyler Reddick, who he's still looking for his first win of the season. He had a good car at the beginning of the race, finished second to Denny Hamlin in stage number 1, but then stage number 2, he got a kick back through the pack, and then he had a right front tire going down to the point where he had to pit under green. But he got the free pass, he was able to get back in the lead lap, and he slowly worked his way back up through the field and was able to come away with a 9th place result. And recently, him and his wife had their second child on the early morning of the Coca-Cola 600. So a big congratulations to the Reddick family, and I know that his son Bo is really happy to have a younger sibling to be in the family. So big congrats to the Reddick family, and a great rebound for Reddick. And then Christopher Bell, who at the beginning of the race, solid in the top 5, but then in stage number 2, when he was trying to block Eric Jones going into turn number 1 on one of the restarts, they were making contact as that was going on, and then by the time we got to 1, they were still together to the point where Jones' right front fender gets into Bell's left rear quarter panel and turns the 20 around, and he hit the outside wall, and I felt like that his night was pretty much done. But it wasn't the case, because he was able to stay on the lead lap, and he fought and clawed his way back inside the top 10, and when I looked at the car after he got up there, I'm like, wait, is that Christopher Bell? And I looked at the back end, I'm like, you know what? It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be way worse, because sometimes when the back end of these cars hit the outside safer barrier wall, aerodynamically, you're in trouble. But it turns out that the hit wasn't as bad as we thought, and he was able to take that car and come home with a 10th place result. That almost felt like a win for that 20 team. But a big job by all 4 of those guys, Bubba, Larson, Reddick, and Bell, to recover from earlier mishaps and finish strong inside the top 10. And number 5, The racing at Nashville last night, I thought was pretty solid. And I feel like going forward, every single Nashville Cup race should be under the lights because around this time of the year, it's June, late May, it gets hot and possibly humid and can attract thunderstorms, and the fans, as much as they love daytime racing, sometimes the humidity can be a little tough on people. But the racing last night under the lights and the sun going down and into the nighttime, I felt like was solid. It was tough to pass at times, of course, especially when we got some rubber laid into the racetrack. But the restarts were absolutely chaotic whenever you got the chance to see these guys going side by side, 3 wide, maybe even 4 wide, going down the back straightaway into turn number 3 was very entertaining. Albeit there were a lot of cautions in the second stage that kind of triggered a lot of events. The Hocevar Stenhouse contact, Alex Bowman getting loose on the inside of Noah Gragson going into turn number 3 and sending them both into the wall and really hurting Bowman as far as the points. He's still above, but he's been losing points the last couple of races. And the Bell Jones incident, and then Corey Heim coming off of turn number 4, not clear of Brad Keselowski, gets turned to the outside wall and pretty much took him out of the race when he was running in the top 15 at the time. Stage 2 was a little bit hectic, and I'm like, oh brother, let's not go back to last year's race where at the end we couldn't seem to get the race finished because we kept having caution after caution after caution. But thankfully this time it was a relatively tamer race than last year's event, especially with the track cooling down and everything. And the final stage was only 1 caution to start when Ryan Preece spun around. After that, we were clean and green the rest of the way. But all in all, again, a really solid race at Nashville. Not the best one that we've had, but like the 5 years that we've been here, it's still a fun and interesting racetrack that you just don't know who's got what and what kind of track we're going to have as far as the racing product and who's going to be able to survive any of the restarts that we have or any of the incidents on the racetrack. So it's a fun track. I mean, I'm sure the NASCAR is still trying to get us to the fairgrounds and run a race there, but Nashville Super Speedway, I feel like, is still deserving to stay on the Cup Series schedule because of the product that it brings and the entertainment and the fan base that we have coming to Nashville since the Cup Series came here in 2021. It's been very, very entertaining, and it was a solid race in general last night. Now we're going to be off to a track where speed really matters. Michigan Speedway in the Irish Hills outside of Brooklyn. It's going to be a very entertaining race where this track is pretty much home to many, it's like where all the manufacturers want to show who's the fastest. And of course, Ford was born in Michigan, so they are going to want to come out firing on all cylinders with their Dark Horse Mustangs next weekend. But there's going to be a lot of storylines. A couple of Michigan natives and Brad Keselowski and Carson Hocevar are looking to win at their home track. Keselowski hoping to finally get the monkey off his back and win at his home track in a Cup car. The big question is, can he do it? That remains to be seen. But can Ryan Blaney back up his win from last night and carry it into next week? Can Kyle Larson, who's run well there in the past and got his first Cup win at that track, get another win there? Or will somebody else pull through, like Tyler Reddick, who did it last year? We shall find out, but it'll be a fun one on that 2-mile track. So I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your night and a wonderful rest of your week. Subscribe, like, and congratulations once again to Ryan Blaney and the 12 team on their big win last night at Nashville. Have a great week, everybody. Let's go racing!